In the pretty grim, soot-covered world of 19th century London, one of the absolute toughest jobs you can imagine was being a chimney sweeper. And this was a life often forced on very young kids. So you have to ask, who would write an essay praising them? Well, the brilliant Charles Lamb, that's who. So let's dive into his incredible essay that manages to find beauty and humanity in, well, the darkest of places.
Lamb kicks things off with this beautiful line of poetry, and it really frames his whole point of view. For him, the chimney sweeper, who's covered in this sable cloud of soot, isn't just someone to feel sorry for. No, he's a source of unexpected light, a silver lining of innocence and joy that most of society had just, completely stopped seeing. And that's the lens we're going to be looking through today. All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with why this was such an unusual subject. Then we'll get into his poetic descriptions, look at his very practical calls for kindness, explore this kind of romantic myth he comes up with, celebrate a real-life hero of compassion, and then finally wrap it all up with the timeless lesson he leaves us. So let's start with the big idea here. Praise for the downtrodden. I mean, think about it. At a time when these children were basically invisible, seen as little more than just walking smudges of dirt, Lamb lifts them up. He doesn't just pity them, he genuinely admires them. He finds things to celebrate in their incredibly difficult lives.
It's really helpful to know where this all comes from. It's part of the Essays of Elia, which is Lamb's most famous work. He wrote under this pen name, Elia, and his style was this amazing mix of humor, memory, and just deep feeling. It's this personal, almost conversational style that makes his radical sense of empathy feel so real and so powerful.
So the first thing Lamb does is totally reframe how we see the sweepers. He doesn't use the dry language of some social reform pamphlet. He uses the language of poetry. He turns their grim reality into something almost magical. And he asks us to just look again, but this time with our imagination wide open. And this slide really shows the incredible contrast. So where society saw dirty, dangerous work, Lamb saw clergy imps in black silently preaching a lesson of patience from the rooftops. Where society's just heard noise, Lamb heard the cheerful chirping of sparrows. And when a boy finally popped out of a chimney, that wasn't just a job well done. For Lamb, it was like a magical flag of victory, waving over a conquered castle. It's all about the power of perspective.
But Lamb wasn't just some dreamer lost in poetry. His vision was deeply tied to a call for real, actual kindness in the real world. He shifts from this abstract praise to very concrete actions, giving his readers specific, tangible things they could do to help these kids.
And his advice? It's so simple and direct. First, just give them a penny. It's not some grand gesture, but it's a direct way of saying, I see you, you're human. And second, offer them sassafras tea. And this is such a wonderfully specific detail, it shows just how closely he was paying attention and how much he cared.
Now you might be thinking, why sassafras tea? I mean, it's a bit random, right? Well, it was a cheap, warm, and sweet-smelling drink that was popular back then. Lamb thought its oily quality might help soothe their throats, which were raw from all the soot. But really, more importantly, he just saw that the kids loved it. For him, offering it was an act of specific, tailored kindness. And this quote right here perfectly shows his ability to find beauty anywhere. Lamb tells this story about slipping and falling in the street, and a young sweeper points and laughs. Now, instead of being offended, Lamb was just totally captivated by the boy's pure, innocent joy. He was struck by the brilliant flash of the boy's white teeth against his sooty face. Ossifications is just a fancy, old-fashioned word for bones, so he's talking about teeth. He sees this as an agreeable anomaly, a pleasant surprise, and a sign of a spirit that hadn't been corrupted. So this ability to see this innate goodness, it leads Lamb to one of the most imaginative parts of the whole essay. He noticed this kind of natural civility and grace in some of the sweepers that just seemed out of place. And this observation led him to a pretty romantic theory. Maybe these weren't children of the poor at all. Maybe, just maybe, they were kidnapped children of noble birth. To back this idea up, he tells this story, it's almost like a fairy tale, of a young sweeper who gets lost cleaning the massive, complex chimneys of Arundel Castle. Can you just imagine this little kid all alone in this dark, confusing maze? So he takes a wrong turn, and instead of popping out onto the roof like he's supposed to, he finds some unknown opening, and he tumbles out into this magnificent state bedroom, a world of luxury and comfort that is totally and completely alien to him. Exhausted from his work, the boy just can't resist. He climbs into the grandest bed he's ever seen in his life and falls fast asleep. Now, for Lamb, this wasn't just a tired kid looking for a place to rest. He saw it as a high instinct at work. A noble soul, unconsciously being drawn back to the comfort and dignity of a life he had lost.
Okay, so if Lamb's essay is the theory of compassion, his friend Jem White is the perfect practice. Lamb finishes up by holding up his old-school friend as the ultimate example of someone who didn't just feel sorry for the sweepers, but actively brought joy into their lives.
So get this. Every year, Jem White would throw this huge feast for all the chimney sweepers in London. And he didn't just hand out food. He served them himself, treating every single child with dignity. He'd even stuff sausages into his own mouth to get the shyest kids to eat, making it a real celebration, not some act of condescending charity.
Lamb writes about his friend with so much affection and nostalgia. In this quote, it just perfectly captures that sense of loss. With Jem White's death, it wasn't just a dinner that ended. A unique and powerful source of joy and kindness just vanished from the world.
So, what do we take away from this beautiful, kind of strange, and really moving essay? Well, it's so much more than just a snapshot of history. Lamb's work is a powerful, lasting lesson about the radical act of truly seeing other people.
Ultimately, Lamb is challenging all of us to look past the dirt, the poverty, the job title. He's urging us to find the clergy imp, the young sparrow, the lost noble in everyone. It's a profound argument for empathy, for choosing a perspective of compassion over one of judgment or just plain indifference.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. The job of child chimney sweeper is thankfully gone, but the act of overlooking people, that's not. So who are the marginalized, the invisible, the misunderstood people in our world today? And maybe more importantly, how can we apply Lamb's lesson and choose to see their silver lining?